At the end of every travel series, the homeward bound journey is done with much reluctance. Join me on this 25-hour journey in economy class from Chocks to Chocks, from here in London Heathrow to Melbourne Tullamarine Airport on the other side of the world. If I can do it, so can you.
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
G'day guys, and welcome to the absolute final episode of this truly eventful travel series. And today I'm coming to you from London Heathrow Airport in Terminal 4. And I'm flying China Southern Airlines all the way back halfway across the world to Australia from here. Total flight time is about 22 hours and it will all be done in economy class. And this doesn't include the 4-hour transit that I have in Guangzhou. So come along with me and let's fly China Southern Airlines. Let's do this.
Everybody just do your thing.
If you're new to my channel, my name's Ryan. Born and bred in Singapore, I now call Australia home, and I create heaps of travel and food-related content. This trip sees us set foot in 5 countries over the course of 2.5 weeks. We stop in China for a first glimpse into an often misunderstood country. And then we set off to the UK, where we'd spend most of our time in Scotland as part of a wedding party. And what an eventful week that was! We then make our way towards Scandinavia, stopping in Denmark, and I pay homage to Sweden because every person alive needs to visit the ABBA Museum and know that the meatballs you have in IKEA taste nothing like the ones in Sweden. We make a brief stop in Finland before heading back to the UK for our extremely long flight back home. This travel series will be filled with flight reports, destination vlogs, and a train journey thrown in for good measure. And these videos are now linked in the description in chronological order for your viewing pleasure. If you'd like to make a direct impact into the growth of my channel, give me a like and share this video with a friend. Even better, hit subscribe and the bell icon so you won't miss the next exciting travel series. So here's the thanks, because your support is very much appreciated. Terminal 4 at Heathrow is really beginning to feel like a second home. Because I was here a little over 6 months ago flying Vietnam Airlines to Ho Chi Minh City. We spent the night at the Holiday Inn Express just across the terminal building and checked out this morning to spend the day eating our way about London. We're now here just after 6 p.m, more than 4 hours before our departure time, and the lines were already full of eager passengers.
So we arrived at check-in at 6:15. What time is it now? 7:05. So it took us about 50 minutes, 50 minutes to check in because, these Chinese flights, the lines get so full very quickly. Even like 4 hours before your actual departure, the lines will be full. Yeah, so now that's said and done. It is time to get on this very, very long journey back to Australia.
The great thing about departing the UK on an international flight, there isn't really any immigration counters to navigate. Your passport details have already been attached to your boarding pass, and you just scan that to gain access to airside. Terminal 4 was refurbished in 2014 and handles just under 10 million passengers annually. This is clearly peak hour as a bank of flights rush to depart before the evening curfew kicks in. The terminal obviously is straining to cope with this crowd, and the lack of seating becomes a real issue here. The original structure of Terminal 4 can kinda sorta be seen from this vantage point. An extension pier was built to cater for the ever-increasing passenger numbers. The budget for the last refurbishment clearly didn't extend to this extension pier. Heathrow very likely picked a nearby primary school and gave the students a project to inspire their future aviation dreams, to design an airport terminal they can see themselves walking through in the future. And voila, this is what we have, a makeshift afterthought of a terminal extension. At least the views out of the window are pretty amazing though. Our ride assigned for flight CZ304 on this long haul to Guangzhou Baiyun Airport is Bravo 1243, a Boeing 787-9, which first flew in May 2018. It was delivered directly from the Boeing factory to China Southern Airlines, making her just under 6.5 years old at the time of writing. You might notice another China Southern Airbus A350 at the next gate. That's flight CZ674 to Beijing Daxing Airport. UK flights to and from China are consistently operating at 100% capacity. So it's no surprise boarding was called a full hour before the scheduled departure time. Airlines from mainland China have a rather iffy reputation for dishing out dowdy service. This being my third flight with China Southern on this trip, I always found their welcome at the door to be very cheerful, and every crew member seems eager to please. Although their vocal welcome seems to be pared back when they realize you don't speak Mandarin. So after audible yells of 你好,你好,欢迎登机 for the fellow yellows, there is an awkward silence and a smile for everyone else. China Southern has 3 configurations for their 787-9s. This one we're on has 28 business class seats in a staggered 1-to-1 configuration using the Thomson Vantage XL shells, and 289 economy seats. We're seated in row 61 on this sector to Guangzhou, in a deliberate attempt to avoid row 62, which has missing windows. This being a long-haul flight, the usual standard offerings of a pillow, blanket, and headphones are all provided. The seat pitch is impressive, with footrests and a universal power port beneath. There's also another USB-A port located beneath the TV. With a generous recline, this should in theory be a comfortable journey all the way from United Kingdom to the Middle Kingdom. I'm beginning to wonder if keeping their planes warm is a Chinese thing, because this cabin was incredibly stuffy, not helped by the lack of individual air nozzles. Point to note though, that all my flights with China Southern on this trip started with a very warm cabin while the aircraft was on the ground. London Heathrow was in her usual congested self that evening, and the heavy traffic meant we weren't able to push back until 17 minutes past our scheduled departure time. Don't know about you, but with the long journey ahead, I wasn't exactly in a rush to go anywhere. As I bid a reluctant farewell to the UK and the rest of Europe, let's take a look at the flight path for CZ304 from Heathrow to Baiyun Airport in Guangzhou. Chinese Airlines are presently the only bunch of lucky ones who are allowed to utilize Russian airspace. So after leaving Finland, we made a trek close to Moscow, where our aircraft did a little Beryotska and Troika, spinning round and round and round, until our dear friend Vladimir clapped his hands in satisfaction. We were then allowed to proceed along the vast expanse of his treasured land, towards Mongolia. We then entered China from the north, flying over the provinces of Henan, Hubei, and Hunan, before arrival into Guangzhou Baiyun Guoji Jichang, clocking a very zippy flight time of 11 hours 11 minutes, covering a distance of just over 9,500 kilometers. On long-haul flights, The meal service on China Southern begins with bar service. I requested for a cup of Chinese tea, and the tea leaves aren't the run-of-the-mill pour. It definitely had a very fragrant aroma, which I suspect it might be Tie Guan Yin. Perhaps you guys can let me know in the comments what kind of tea this is. When the meal arrived, something was clearly off. It wasn't on the normal plastic meal trays. Instead, we were given these clear disposable fiddly plastic boxes. I'm pretty sure the in-flight kitchen at Heathrow had a little hiccup, and this was used as a stopgap measure. It definitely wasn't very on brand for China Southern Airlines that evening. My choice was the braised beef with potatoes, and it came with a side of potato salad and smoked chicken, and a tangy chocolate cake with a lemon curd. The other option was a spicy chicken with rice. If you put the tacky-looking presentation aside, the meal was actually rather delicious. Everything from the starter to the main and dessert was pretty much high-quality stuff, tasty to the last spoon. Flying so far north in this region in summer, the night is very short, and the sun was soon rising very quickly outside. But the window shade was locked for the entire cabin. In my attempt to acclimatize my body clock, I forced myself to stay awake for this flight, in hopes that I'd be so exhausted and fall asleep on my next flight to Melbourne. Slightly over 2.5 hours out of Guangzhou, lights came on, and we received a wake-up call of a scented hot towel. By now, I could hardly keep my eyes opened, because according to my body, I was supposed to be fast asleep back in the UK. But here I am, getting treated to another round of bar service before the second meal service. By the time the main meals came around, window shades were unlocked, and passengers were suddenly alive again and started bouncing about like a couple of chickens at a rave. Options for brekkie were the chicken noodles, which honestly looked a little radioactive. And hubby went for the Western option of bacon, eggs, sausage and potatoes. Once again, this main was very agreeable on my palate. One of the ways of trying to stay awake when I'm exhausted is to eat. So I flagged down the flight attendant and asked if they had any leftovers from the meal service. So the Western option ended up in my tummy as well. When you fly as much as I do, long-haul flights can be quite a drag on your system. But this flight seemed to have gone by in a flash, and in a jiffy, we were now landing at Guangzhou Baiyun Airport. This was an awesome conclusion to flight number 1, as the friendly hosties bid us a cheerful farewell. Since I was literally nodding off, I did not want to fall asleep and miss my onward flight, so we went in search of some more food. After the initial excitement of what I thought was deep-fried pelican, we were actually tucking into some crispy, finger-licking yummy pieces of chicken. I also found a little box of garlic scallops for about $7 Australian. Gotta love these layovers though. After all that food, I actually gave up and had a little snooze, with the alarm set to wake me up in 30 minutes. Guangzhou Baiyun Airport is an impressive structure, there's no denying. It's one of the largest airports in the world. We are in Terminal 2, which was officially opened in 2018. This terminal is so humongous, I think they have more area space than they know what to do with. So as impressive as this terminal is, it does feel very incomplete, with lots of weird unused areas. And the lack of air conditioning, oh my god. The humidity of Guangzhou's summer made its way into the airport. So perhaps the AC system can't cope with the amount of area space it has to cool? Just look at my glasses fogging up when I arrived some 2 weeks ago at this very airport. Yep, it is very stuffy. Operating flight CZ321 for this service from Guangzhou Baiyun to Melbourne Tullamarine was Bravo 1128, a Boeing 787-9 which first flew in July 2018. So she's just over 6 years old at the time of writing. Another set of audible welcome greeted us for this flight, and the bevy of enthusiastic cabin crew was once again on hand to assist passengers in settling into their seats. For this second sector, we were still in row 61, but we were now on the right-hand side of the aircraft. So here we are, airborne for the home run back to the great southern land we call home. The departure profile would take us over the bright lights of the mega Guangzhou city. Then coasting out over Macau, we would make several flight path adjustments over the South China Sea and the archipelagos of the Philippines and Indonesia to avoid the monsoonal storm cells. We coast into Australia over the Tiwi Islands and Darwin, followed by a direct flight path towards Melbourne, where we hit the heavy arrival traffic jam, requiring us to circle for a bit before landing. Covering a distance of just under 7,600 kilometers and a flight time of 8 hours 40 minutes. Here is an interesting comparison. How two rather similar airlines approach these red-eye flights. 6 months ago, we departed Ho Chi Minh City with Vietnam Airlines to Melbourne, and the flight time is roughly the same. On that carrier, they did away with the bar service and went straight to an expeditious dinner service, then it was lights out. Not China Southern though. We were still treated to the standard drink run before our meals, complete with a pre-meal towel service. This is my third meal in over 14 hours with China Southern. For dinner tonight, we have a chicken patty with steamed vegetables and potatoes, served with a starter of salad and ham. The Chinese do love their mystery hams, and of course fresh fruits. We're also given a sweet treat of a flaky biscuit with the filling of sweetened red bean. The chicken patty turned out to be very palatable. A huge thumbs up there. Hubby's choice was a chicken and rice with vegetables. This full-on bar and meal service took just under 2 hours to complete. The logical thing to do now was to let my exhausted body take over and just drift off to sleep. Have you ever been so exhausted you could not sleep? Yeah, that was how I felt. So I tried to bore myself with some seriously bad acting from Pierce Brosnan. Hopefully he could put me to sleep. But I got increasingly annoyed at how bad this movie was. I ended up staying awake the entire time with my brain working overtime, fuming and pondering about the shitty storyline. Since I could not sleep, why not eat some more? As we approached Alice Springs, lights have now come on as the flight attendants woke all of us up with hot towels, followed by the drinks cart. Breakfast soon followed, and unlike many other airlines flying similar routes, this is where you'd get a box of wrap or sandwich just before arrival. If you are a Qantas frequent flyer, you'll know what I mean. But here with China Southern, it's a full meal. I went for the Western option of eggs frittata with sausage and potatoes, and hubby chose the shredded chicken noodles. If you disembark from a China Southern flight still hungry afterwards, something has to be seriously wrong with you. Even for someone like me with such a huge appetite, I had to turn down offerings of extra snacks between the main meal service. These guys do feed you very well. With the meal service complete, we were greeted with a winter sunrise over South Australia. And this is the time where I draw my final thoughts about flying China Southern Airlines halfway around the world from London to Melbourne via Guangzhou. Chinese airlines have the advantage of using expeditious flight paths over Russia when flying to and from Europe. So flight times are a lot shorter when compared to flying alternative airlines. This is most pronounced when you're flying west from Asia towards Europe against the Earth's rotation, with Chinese airlines getting there faster by up to 2.5 hours. The transit in Guangzhou is very unnecessarily complicated. As you transition from arrivals through to departure airside, you get stopped to have your passport and boarding pass checked. I got questioned where I was coming from and heading to. Then it was through to security. Everyone's bags were taken apart and scrutinized right down to the final fiber. Charging cables, laptops, extra battery packs, medication, and so on. My drone was picked apart, filming gear, microphone packs, you name it. Instructions were yelled out in Mandarin what needed to be removed. But this communication was as useful as a solar torchlight, because most passengers in line were Caucasians. And no, the staff did not speak English. So do I really want to fly a Chinese airline to transit in China? I'm not too sure. That being said, in my next travel series, I'm flying from Haneda to Taipei via Pudong Airport in Shanghai. I'm eager to see how that transit experience will differ from Guangzhou, so do stay tuned. Finally, the actual in-flight product of China Southern. The days of Chinese carriers being the laughingstock of the aviation world is truly over. These 4 flights have proved that they are extremely capable of providing a decent product to the international arena. The food was awesome, although it could be my biased Asian palate talking. But I thought the Western options were more than okay. In-flight entertainment was surprisingly pretty full. It's not the best I've seen, but they are far from being the worst. We paid 1,200 Australian dollars per person for this in economy class, and that's Melbourne to London return. And the product we got in return was value-packed personified. Friendly flight attendants, great food, and even an amenity kit in economy class. Now this I was seriously impressed. Who else does this? Do you want to get your hands on one? And now you can. You see, I've got this amenity kit right here from China Southern Airlines that is still in a sealed condition. So I'm gonna give this away to one of you who leaves a comment on this video. And do not forget also to leave your Instagram handle in the comment. I only have 3 conditions though. Number 1, you must be a subscriber on my YouTube channel. And number 2, you must be a follower on my Instagram. And number 3, you have to live in Australia. So at the end of November, I will announce the winner of this giveaway on my Instagram page, and then I will mail this to you for free. Alright, so go ahead and leave the comment, and good luck! My final comments before we end this video is about Australia's best airport as awarded by Skytrax in 2023. Australian passport holders, together with a handful of countries, are eligible to use e-gates on arrival. All around the world, the usage of e-gates signify an expeditious experience. The logic is simple. You walk up to the gantry, scan your passport, and off you go. Here in Melbourne Tullamarine, you're required to go to a kiosk before you head towards the e-gates. This kiosk will ask you a couple of standard questions before it spits out a ticket with a barcode. And with this ticket, you head towards the e-gate gantry to scan your passport. In theory, this is supposed to streamline the arrival process, right? Melbourne Tullamarine Airport opened in 1970. The original airport terminal seen in this black and white image is still standing. Looking at the plan view of the airport, the original structure forms much of Terminal 2, which is now the designated international terminal. Over the decades, more area spaces and finger piers have been constructed to add more gates because passenger traffic can only increase year on year. But sadly, the central area processing these passengers have largely remained unchanged since 1970. So we have infrastructure designed in the 1960s handling today's traffic. The tight confines weren't made for this. Morning arrivals always strain the capability, and today was no different. The amount of kiosks dispensing those tickets needed for the e-gates I mentioned about earlier cannot cope, and it results in this epic bottleneck. And here's the kicker. After collecting that ticket, there's no need for it at the e-gates. You just scan your passports and walk straight through. The lines for customs inspection also snakes around the entire arrival hall. The customs officer collects our ticket without even batting an eyelid. What an unnecessary clunky piece of wasted tech that is. After flying through 2 sunsets and 2 sunrises, and experiencing some of the world's most modern airport terminals in China, sometimes all it takes is for us to flex our passports and travel beyond our shores to see how the rest of the world has modernized and moved on. While the embarrassing mosh pit continues to marinate itself at Melbourne Airport, it's time for us to join Live Ryan outside the airport to wrap up this video. And just like that, we're back in Melbourne. Whoa, what a tiring trip it was. It was a total of roughly about 25 hours from the pushback in London till the time when the aircraft docked here in Melbourne. Yeah, so a 25-hour journey, and we're here in a cold and grey Melbourne. Well, anyway, that's the final episode of this travel series. So I've chucked details of my Instagram on your screen right now, so make sure you hit me up there. Chuck me a follow so you can see where am I traveling to in real time. And of course, more importantly, do not forget to hit the subscribe and the bell notification icon, and I will see you for my next travel series. Bye!